Hi, welcome, Marcia. It's so great to have you in our first podcast, Leading
Thank
Minds.
you.
We thought about starting this. You were the first person that I thought that I wanna to have you in our podcast and in our first one. You wrote the preface of my book coming up in September, Lead with a Coaching Mindset. But you also
Honored to do that.
want to introduce me to Meredith Kohler, and I'm very, very thankful for that because not everybody is so open and generous like you are. So we know each other for many years, Marcia. We know I was making memory. We met at the Global Board of Directors meeting. You came as a guest speaker.
Oh, right. Yeah.
2010, Giovanna D'Alessio invited me.
Yeah, it was Atlanta or something like that. Yeah.
Yes, and you need to share a story. How to be a good storyteller, and we have an amazing time sharing our stories. And years later, you wrote several books. I have at home two. The last one, Breakthrough Coaching, an amazing book. I think that this is a bestseller, translated in I don't know how many languages already.
Yeah.
And I had the discomfort zone, and in the middle, coach the person, not the problem. But I had that.
Right. hmm
And you're very well known and appreciated because of your trajectory. We have in common that we have been president of the International Coaching Federation. We had also been involved together in the National Speakers Association in a completely different context. Uh,
Right.
I really admire you very much, and I feel
Thank
very
you.
privileged to have you here today.
hmm
And we're going to be talking about leading with a coaching mindset. And I'm
hmm
curious because you have been a coach for many years. Well, you were one of the pioneers. You started
hmm
ICF originally. We are celebrating 30 years now. You have been
Yeah, I
from the
know.
beginning. Now, when you're working with leaders these days, because
hmm
this podcast is for leaders,
Right.
how to bring a
hmm
coaching mindset to our work. But before
hmm
we get there, what do you see some of the challenges that leaders are
Yeah.
doing these days?
Well, I don't necessarily think they're new. I think they're intensified. Because, prior to coming to coaching, I spent 16 years working in companies, teaching leadership, trying to help the leaders get better engagement, communication skills, and then I shifted into coaching and found, oh, coaching is a much better way to help people learn. But the challenge is still taking a moment to connect because I always say I always wanted my leader to really see me and understand me, really listen to me, but I never expected it. But the employees today are expecting it. They expect for you to take a moment to really hear them, to feed back what you hear them saying, to make sure there's a shared understanding, and to help them know you are significant to me, and how far that goes. And then you're going to take the time to help me develop, so it's whether you as a leader think that they're too demanding or selfish, it doesn't matter. This is what it takes to engage them, to keep your best talent with you, and to have people desire to give their best. I always say, Damian, there's people will do what they have to do, but giving their best is discretionary, discretionary effort. So, how do you motivate that I will give my very best to you? And it has to do with the relationship and that I feel seen, I feel heard, understood, and valued.
And when you feel that way, your level
Mhm.
of motivation, inspiration is very different.
Right. It's an internal motivation, not external based on giving me a raise, which only lasts for a short time. And then you got to give me more.
Yeah.
So,
It's interesting that in the preface of the book, you wrote about that. You
mm,
shared that when you ask leaders that you work with, when they are
mhm,
their best, what they are doing.
mhm,
And the answer is about productivity and result, not necessarily about
uh-huh,
spending time listening,
mhm.
working on their development.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still within their mind that they have to, get results and move the organization forward, very directive. We'd like to think that that's evolved. But even when I ask leaders, I have an exercise in the last 6 months, what are you most proud of? And the sentences always start with either I or we. This is what I did. Or it could be what we did, me and my team, that I motivated the team and we solved this problem together. But there's very few times, in fact, only once in asking that question in class, did someone say, what I'm most proud of is that my team did all this work without me, that they accomplished great things, and it was that the courage to develop people and trust them and then let them go do it and know that you're still significant, even more significant because now you can spend your time on strategy and other things, but to create it to where they're so they have the autonomy, that I can do this on my own. You've helped them in their mastery and their development, and as Simon, no, it was, I forget, the author that said it's autonomy, mastery, and purpose, um, that I know I'm significant to this company. Help me to feel that way, and I will do my best, and I will do work without you being in the room. And so how can you shift to, I'm so proud they did it without me? And that's where the coaching mindset comes in, that I need to really sit down and listen to how you see things and be curious about your ideas so you feel important. And then maybe, if I think maybe there's something else for you to consider, I can add on to what you give. But that we partner, the leader partners with their team members to develop, to work at their very best, um, and knowing that I can do this on my own.
Interesting that you talk about partnering because in the book,
Mm.
I talk about different competencies that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
International Coaching Federation framework
Mm-hmm.
coaches apply to leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And one is about partnering, how we collaborate, how we co-create.
Yeah.
think many
Mm-hmm.
times when clients come to me and we have coaching sessions and they're leading teams and they say, oh, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And how they partner with their teams to get the
Mm-hmm.
solutions instead of feeling that
Mm-hmm.
they had to come up with all of the answers is
Mm-hmm.
something that one of the areas that sometimes we go,
Yeah.
that they get by themselves without me telling them, okay,
Mm.
what about collaborating with your team
Yeah.
and getting your team to come up with the answers when it's appropriate
Right.
and possible.
Well, Damian, oftentimes when I ask a leader if I'm coaching them, it's like, define leadership for me.
Mhm.
I mean, really, what are your major responsibilities as a leader? And hopefully they're not just saying making a profit, getting results, but as a leader, not managing the processes, but as a leader, and especially a leader of leaders. If you have leaders working for you, isn't that your responsibility to help them be the best leaders they can be? That the responsibility to the company that I'm promoting and developing more leaders for this company and somebody to replace me just in case I go for some reason. That's a major responsibility that leaders often don't take on and realize how critical that is to the organization's success.
When you think about developing a coaching mindset, can you think of any story that still stick with you over
Sure.
the years?
So I was coaching the vice president of a supply chain management of a global company, and he'd been promoted and was a real technical process guy, and and he came to me. He says, "I know that I have to connect with people better. That it's not my preference." But in the position that I'm in, and he had sights even uh, you know, to even be promoted to senior VP in the organization. And when I said, connect with them. What does that mean? You know, and that even that just that question made him think. So it's not just me talking to people. You know, what's the difference between talking to people and connecting with them? And how it framed out was, you know, and there was an article um, about what was it, popping the CEO bubble. But, you know, the suggestion was you got to go out and be curious and talk to people. You know, ask them questions. How do they see this going? What suggestions do they have to improve the process? Because they're doing it. This is global, so that, you know, each division or each region, you know, is runs it differently. You know, and so he said, okay, that's what I need to develop, not just going out and being present, but how do I engage them in conversation? And that took a lot of shifting for him from uh, I'm the technical expert who knows to I have a coaching mindset wanting to know what you know, you know, and how we can make what we do better based on your knowledge and expertise. And there was a lot of his letting go, even in order to have a coaching mindset. And it was hugely successful. You know, I had done a part of it was I had done a live 360, and even the people that work for him said, you know, we need to see him more. He needs to come out and be with us and talk with us. So he knew he had to do that, you know, but they went through a very difficult time. You know, with there was it was one of those times our economy kind of crashed, and this was a company that made something for consumers, and he had to, you know, really engage and change a lot of the processes in the supply chain. And he was able to do that based on their input and then their engagement because they felt important. They felt important and really wanted this whole company to be successful, not just their own success. So it really changed his mindset of what leadership is, you know, and bringing a coaching mindset into that, and also his courage to get out there and be with them instead of hide behind his desk and his computer. So that was a huge success, and he, you know, we talked a lot about the transformation he had to make and how much courage that would take, and it was really something to watch him do that. Yeah.
I think when you share the stories is that he showed up like
Yeah.
before he was not, but the idea of relationships,
Yeah, definitely.
investing time in relationships,
Mm-hmm.
that I think is something to consider to everybody who's listening to us today.
Mm-hmm.
What extent are we investing time in building these relationships, in cultivating these relationships?
Yeah.
They say, Marcia, that many people leave their bosses, not the organization.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Be-
Well, yeah. I mean, there's not even loyalty to the companies. It's loyalty to the boss and the team.
Mhm.
And if they feel like, you know, they're not getting what they need, their social needs, respect, feeling understood, feeling important. If they're not getting that, they'll go. And it's the best people who will go because they know they can get a job somewhere else.
You said something before that made me think is to develop a coaching mindset, we need to let go
Yeah.
some of all ways of being, like being an
Hmm.
expert or having all of the
Hmm.
answers or feeling that we are a great
Hmm.
leader if we can give all of the answers to
Hmm.
share our experience as being an expert. If we let that go,
Yeah.
there is a space for something else. What else
Right.
do you think
Well,
leaders need to let go to create and
yeah.
develop the coaching mindset?
You know, for years, for 10 years, I taught leadership for Maersk, the shipping company, and it was based on the book, The Leadership Pipeline. And what I love about that book, it was that, you know, it looked at every level of leadership, that there was different values that must be developed, you know, like developing people, helping leaders be leaders so they develop people, you know, and you move up into enterprise and having business acumen so the skills that have to be developed to meet those values are really important, but they also said, here's what you can't do anymore. So if you move up to being a leader of leaders, you have to quit being, overseeing the processes. You've got to, develop your leaders enough to trust them and let them oversee the processes. Otherwise, you're getting in the way. You're getting in the way. So, to take on a different value set, values is a part of who I think I am. I define myself by what's most important to me in my life. And so if you're shifting in work values, there has to be also a shift in who I think I am, which means I got to let go of the old me in order to be the new me as a leader. And letting go and letting that old self die is not that easy because you were successful as the old self, and now we're saying, okay, great, you were successful, but now you've made it into a different area and now you got to be different.
And particularly now with all of the technology, AI, and all of the new trends that we are all navigating, I
Yeah.
think it's even more important to spend
Hmm.
time in building this relationship and this trusting. You talk about trust, these
Yeah.
trusting relationships that
Hmm.
allow people to feel, as you said before, important, valued,
Yeah.
so they can be engaged. So
Yeah.
time flies. We need to start wrapping up. Anything you want to say before we go? Any comment, observation, any last thought
Yeah.
that
Well, one of my favorite quotes, quoting myself,
good?
is, they truly want you to be present more than they need you to be perfect.
Mhm.
And so that deepening of the presence. And you know what? It doesn't take extra time. So leaders that say, I don't have time for that. If somebody stops you in a hallway, it just takes a moment just to turn around and look at them instead of walk with me and I'm not really listening to you. But look at them. Just look at them. I see you. And if this is not a good time to say, I see you, I see this is important, let's schedule time so we can talk about this. Give people a moment at least to be with them fully. You have time for that.
Great way to wrap up today our podcast. If people want to reach you, what is the best way to contact you?
Mm. Well, my website is co-visioning, one word, co-visioning.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where most people are finding me these days.
Great,
So,
Masha. Thank you very much for your time, for coming to our first podcast.
thank you for
And And I
asking.
hope you come back because we are going to
Definitely.
continue in the future with other topics. So thank you again for being here with us today.